Hey, welcome back to the Too Fast channel. In today's video, I'm going to do a quick discussion about this shift knob and shifter boot, which I picked up for my 2008 Volkswagen EOS VR6. I picked this up off of AliExpress. I'll put the link in the description. Since I have a Mk5 EOS, the shifter knob has the button on the left. You'll see this particular knob. This is a newer knob. This is probably a late Mk6 or Mk7 knob. The button's on the front. So to fit one of these on an older car requires a bit of modification, which I'm going to detail a little later in the video. Now, I picked this particular one up because I recently wrapped the aluminum trim in the EOS with carbon fiber. So all the silver aluminum trim is now wrapped in carbon fiber. I found this on AliExpress. There's a lot of these different ones on AliExpress. You can get the black synthetic leather with black stitching, white stitching. This one happens to be red stitching. I like that. This one's a little bit different than the others because this boot looks like Alcantara. The other ones look more like a fake leather. And also this particular DSG knob has the carbon fiber inserts on it. And I think I paid roughly $58 for this, so it's very reasonable. It's got the DSG logo at the top. It doesn't come with this foam. I just put that on there so it would stand up straight. And it does come with the plastic trim ring already attached, which is good, so you don't have to reuse yours. And this red rod that's right here, this is basically to keep this knob out, or this button out. So when you're ready to install this, you'll remove this and slide it down. There's also a this looks more like a hose clamp. Well, it is a hose clamp. Let me rephrase that. Once you get this installed, well, we'll see this a little later. Once you get this installed, you'd put this clamp over this, and you tighten it down. That way the knob won't come off of your shifter shaft. So there's plenty of them on AliExpress that have the regular black leather look, different color stitching, and then of course they've got this style of knob with just the black leather or synthetic leather inserts. I got this one because it had the carbon fiber and the Alcantara style boot on it, and of course the price was right. The quality looks good. Obviously, I don't believe this is an original Volkswagen part. I mean, I don't think Volkswagen ever sold a boot like this or carbon fiber inserts, so this is most likely aftermarket. But everything on here so far looks good. And all I have to deal with now is making sure that this plastic trim ring will snap into my shifter surround. I don't know, since this is kind of designed for a different model Volkswagen. But anyway, just wanted to detail this before we get into the installation, which is coming up. Alright, we've transitioned back into the interior of the Volkswagen EOS. We're going to start with the removal of the original DSG shift knob with the push button on the left. Now you can do this several ways. You can remove the shifter trim, remove the whole assembly, and then pop this out. I'm actually not going to do that. I'm just going to pull on this trim. My leather is already kind of pulled away from this plastic trim piece a little bit because I replaced this shifter boot and had to restaple it. So you know, you can get access without removing the trim piece if you decide to go that route. If not, this whole piece basically kind of pops out, and you've got a plug to unplug, and you can lift the whole assembly out. Now, removing the OEM shifter boot, there's several things we'll need to do. To remove the knob and the boot, we've got to remove this side piece right here, which of course I'm on the other side of the car, so I can't quite see what I'm doing. This piece has to come out. A small flat blade screwdriver or plastic pry bar tool will work. There we go. That just kind of pops out. We have to remove that because to remove the shift knob, you got to reach a finger inside there and push on this assembly, and you'll hear a click, and the push button will pop out. That's a little rod that goes through a shaft, and you've got to push the rod out so the whole knob can be removed. So don't forget to do that part, because if you don't do this, you'll be pulling on this knob and it's not going to go anywhere. And the next step we're going to do is we're going to pull the shifter boot up around the knob. Now these older Mk5s, they have this little plastic trim piece right here, which you may or may not be able to see. And this piece needs to be pulled down. Like I just pulled it down and you heard it go click. That pinches the base of the knob onto the shaft. So if you have something like this, you've got to pull it down, and it could be tight. You got to pull it down till it clicks off, and once it clicks off, you should be able to work the knob off, and it's going to be on there kind of tight. So just on there tight. No, I'm gonna wiggle with this a little bit off camera, and we'll come back. There's no point in you sitting through me fighting with the shift knob for 5 minutes. Okay, just had to wiggle the knob a little bit and put a little muscle behind it to pop it off, and there we go. So that's the first step in the process. Also, there's a little rubber piece right here. You may not be able to see that too well. Make sure that if you end up moving the shaft around a bit, that this rubber piece right here doesn't get lost. I did pull the shift lever back right to about there to pull up on the shift knob, and this little rubber piece popped off. It almost fell down in there, but I caught it. So make sure you watch that, because it seems to pop out rather easy. So now the tricky part happens. Our new shift knob that we're going to install, because the button is on the front, the button needs to go through the shaft in this direction. So basically our hole in the shaft is going this way, and we need it to go this way. Now I thought about this before when I had this apart, and I thought about, well, you know, maybe I could drill a hole through here, and or maybe I could take this whole assembly out and remove this, and of course I couldn't find a concise any type of concise instructions on how to do that. But what I did find was some other Mk5 owners have done this similar type of shift knob upgrade, and what they've done is they've actually applied a bit of heat to this shaft, and they've twisted it enough. Since this is plastic, if you apply enough heat to this, it will soften up and you can twist this. So that's the route I'm going to go to do this. And of course you're going to want to be careful doing this. You don't want to break this piece. If you break this piece, you're going to be in trouble. So it can be, it'll probably be a bit time consuming, but I will show some of it, and we'll go from there. So I've never done this before. I've only watched videos of other people doing this. It seems pretty straightforward. Clever idea. If I had not seen those videos, I don't think I would have thought about applying heat and just twisting this plastic a little bit. So that's the route we're going to go, and I've got to prep this area and get the heat gun out, and we'll be back. Okay, so I've got everything covered up here because, you know, I just covered all my trim pieces with the carbon fiber vinyl, and I don't want the heat to cause any problems with my new vinyl wrap. So I've got everything covered up here. I'm going to be using low heat. I have a Wagner heat gun. If you don't have a heat gun, you can use a hair dryer. I'm not sure if a hair dryer will get hot enough. Heat gun would be best, but I'm going to go on low temp. I also have this is a radio removal key. I saw somebody in a video. I saw somebody using vice grips. I saw somebody else using a radio removal key, which I happen to have. I wrapped the end of it with some tape, and it fits in there. And what we're basically just going to do is I'm going to heat this up, and I'm going to try and just slowly move this shaft so the opening is going in this direction. So that's the goal here. I've never done this before, so keep that in mind. Now these heat guns, even on the low, can get really hot, so I'm just applying heat right in this area, and it's not, whenever I'm using a heat gun, I always keep the heat moving. You don't want the heat in one spot. You don't want to melt anything. I like to apply a bit of heat, take the heat off, and always keep the heat gun moving. If you keep heat in one spot for too long, you're going to melt something. Hair dryer probably not as bad, but yeah, heat gun. After it is deforming a little bit, which is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for it to deform as it heats up. And then I'm going to maintain the position I want it in until it cools down. And then I'm going to take the piece out. So it has moved a bit. We do have a bit more work to do, and I'm going to keep doing the same thing. I'm just going to apply some heat to it. Let it cool down a little bit, and it has moved a little bit more. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to keep doing this because this will probably take me 10-15 minutes, and that's going to be pretty boring to watch. So I'm going to keep at this and pause the camera, and we'll come back when I get close to being finished. Okay, about 15 minutes later. Again, you want to take your time on this. You don't want to go too far and wreck something. That could cost you a lot of time and money to fix any screw-ups. Again, I spent about 15 minutes lightly applying heat to soften up this plastic using the radio removal key to slowly twist this, so now the hole in this shifter shaft is facing this direction, which should line up with the new Mk6 Mk7 shift knob. Now, the other thing you want to do is test this and make sure that this freely moves up and down and it's not catching. If you can see, you may not be able to see how the plastic has deformed a bit when I twisted it, but not that much. We still got free, it still moves freely up and down, and I did test this moving it back and forth. There's no problems, there's no hang-ups here, and this hole is pretty much facing forward. So that's pretty much all there is to making this modification. So this was real easy. Our next step is to move on and install the new Mk6 Mk7 shift knob and see if we can get the push button shaft piece to go through here and test if it works. So that's next up. Okay, I've got the new shifter assembly and the old one right here, and I'm looking at the plastic rings, and from what I can see, they're identical. 1, 2, 3, 4 tabs, notch, notch, 1, 2, 3, 4 tabs, notch, and a notch. So this should be pretty straightforward compatibility-wise. Shouldn't be an issue. So next step here is I haven't installed one of these new knobs that have this red plastic rod in them, which obviously the rod is to keep this button from being pushed in. So when I pull the rod out, I want to make sure I don't push the button in, because I may not be able to get the button back out. Who knows? So we have a little hose clamp right there, which needs to be loosened up just a tad. The other videos I've seen, they don't have a hose clamp. They have some sort of a clamp that kind of, you use like a pliers to crimp it on, and if you want to remove it, you got to cut it to get it off, which seems to be kind of hokey because, you know, then you got to buy another one of those clamps. This seems like it'll get the job done. It's the right size, and you can tighten it down with a screw, and if you need to remove it, you can just loosen it up and remove it. So I've got it loosened up enough to go over this so I can remove this rod, and it just pops out. And this little clamp needs to be loosened up a bit more. Actually, I think I'll just slide that down there and worry about getting the there we go. Tight, and it's all the way down, and we should be able to do that. And let's see if it works. And it works. Yeah, so easy enough. Now we need to clamp this in place. So you may not be able to see it, but We're going to get that little hose clamp up into place, and we'll tighten it down. That doesn't need to be super tight on there. You want it to be nice and snug so the knob won't pull off. And that's nice and snug. And then we can push our boot down. Doesn't like the car being in reverse. And it's in nice and secure. And we're done. So that's the whole process for upgrading the Mk5 shifter knob to a Mk6 or Mk7 style shifter knob. I know probably some of the Mk6s have this style knob in it, but some of them have the older style knob like I had. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Works just like it's supposed to. No problems. Very little profanity this time around. Amazing. German cars can really frustrate me sometimes with the thought process that went into designing some of the components in these cars. Being a longtime Mercedes owner, I'm very familiar with the thought process of the Germans when it comes to car engineering. Quite different from what the Japanese put into their cars. So that's pretty much it. That's going to wrap up this installation of the Mk6 Mk7 shifter knob and the modification of the shifter shaft. So hopefully this information is useful. Again, I'll put the link to this particular shift knob and shift boot in the description. I picked it up from AliExpress for about 58 bucks. If you want to check one out, or one of the similar ones, there's plenty of them on there, so pick whichever one you like. Anyway, thanks for watching.